My name is John Doran. I've been working in sales and marketing for about 15 years now, but for the last 8 or 9 years, specifically in partnerships. For the last 18 months, I've been working with a company called the UX Design Institute. Basically, the UX Design Institute, we are the global certification body for UX design. We work with all different kinds of partners, private training providers, universities, large global education organizations, online education organizations. We like to think of ourselves as very aligned with the industry. We work with the industry leaders to make sure that our certifications teach the real employable skills of UX design. And we also work with the UK University, Glasgow Caledonian University, to accredit our online professional certification programs. Previous to working with the UX Design Institute, I worked with the Digital Marketing Institute for 8 years, and very much the same type of organization, a global certification body for digital marketing. So I have quite a bit of experience in the area. I worked out or started working probably at the lowest level as a business development representative, and worked my way up to the head of partnerships over the course of the last 9 to 10 years now, working in the industry. My name is John Doran. I've been working in sales and marketing for about 15 years now, but for the last 8 or 9 years, specifically in partnerships. For the last 18 months, I've been working with a company called the UX Design Institute. Basically, the UX Design Institute, we are the global certification body for UX design. We work with all different kinds of partners, private training providers, universities, large global education organizations, online education organizations. We like to think of ourselves as very aligned with the industry. We work with the industry leaders to make sure that our certifications teach the real employable skills of UX design. And we also work with the UK University, Glasgow Caledonian University, to accredit our online professional certification programs. Previous to working with the UX Design Institute, I worked with the Digital Marketing Institute for 8 years, and very much the same type of organization, a global certification body for digital marketing. So I have quite a bit of experience in the area. I worked out or started working probably at the lowest level as a business development representative, and worked my way up to the head of partnerships over the course of the last 9 to 10 years now, working in the industry. There's a few key things that building a partner network can really bring to a startup organization. The first thing is new revenue streams. So quite often, what we do find, well, in the last two institutions I work for, there's only so far you can go with business to consumer. There is a ceiling to the amount of students you can recruit through that. Channels like Google AdWords or search marketing campaigns, social media campaigns can be very expensive, and the return on investment in recruiting individuals directly through B2C can become unprofitable. With the partner network, you're opening yourself up to new revenue streams through new organizations. I think, one thing that you can do through a partner network is you can really grow your reach. So B2C teams, quite often they can only concentrate on real core markets. For our organization, it's like, the UK, USA, the large sort of English speaking markets, whereby if you're working with local providers, they know the local traditions, the local regulations, they know about the actual student profiles. So they have the knowledge on the ground to be able to recruit students, or recruit customers. And that's the real thing that a partner network brings. It's that scalability and access to local markets that might not be so profitable if you try to do your own marketing campaigns there. Um, the other thing too is when you work with a partner, you're very much leveraging their resources. So, for example, if we work with the university, they have a huge alumni database that potentially might want to do our certifications. They know all the local businesses that might need training in UX. And they really have the ear to the ground, of students who need to do a specific core skill. So its accesses to other people's networks, which is really important, because it cuts back on marketing costs. It also, like a local sales team or a local student recruitment team for a university, they carry a much higher trust value than, say, we have a rep in Dublin calling somebody in the USA. If they're got, somebody from their local university calling them, then they know they can trust the actual brand more. So it's that brand affiliation between ourselves and the university or the private training provider, which is local, which really helps that trust level, and it will make the student recruitment much easier. The other aspects is adaptation to local markets. So we have some partners, for example, we have partners in Brazil, and other areas in South America. So in Brazil, they translate our program into Portuguese. Other partners translate into local languages. This is something that us as an organization wouldn't have the actual resources to do. And if we were to do it, we probably wouldn't do it right, because obviously if you're translating into Portuguese, there's different nuances between Portugal and Brazilian Portuguese. So it's really good just to have these local experts to be able to do these things that us here in Dublin couldn't really do correctly. So it's about localizing the content, making it fit for purpose for the students locally, and really, I guess, respecting, local traditions and local ways of doing things and things like that. So I think, they're probably the biggest factors when it comes to building a partner network. The other thing too is, I guess, it gets a lot of students from these areas into your network. And once they're in your network, they become part of that network and are they grow with that association of your brand, etc. So that's the main reasons. I guess, it's to grow that reach, increase revenues for the organization, and that localization element as well. I think the first thing you need to do is, do a lot of research, and you need to know that local market, before starting to speak to partners there. You need to kind of be cognizant of the rules, the regulations, the commercial aspects, what is the economy like in that sector. Certain markets for us here, we just find them too difficult to work in, and we just find that the regulations are too difficult to actually, I guess, navigate. We don't work in those regions. We choose to work in places that are open to doing business with partners, and who are kind of cognizant and used to dealing with foreign businesses. You have to know about the local taxes, local regulations, things like that. So don't waste your time in markets that are ultimately going to waste your time just doing all the research and almost getting the deal together, and then next thing it falls through because of a local regulation. I would also say that you really need to segment your partner network. So be mindful of, for example, we work with universities, colleges, private training providers, and large scale global organizations. Like we work with training providers that could maybe have two, five, 10 people on the staff. We work with global education providers who have 30,000 people working for them. So it's all different kinds of organizations. So obviously it's different rules for different kind of organizations. And you just really have to know each partner and segment them accordingly. And you have to build your partner models accordingly to what they want to do in terms of their needs, goals, and their objectives. It's not one size fits all, uh, but at the same time, you need to have regular partnerships that follow rules. You can't be, creating bespoke partnerships for every kind of organization. That says, when a big player comes along, a big fish, a global provider that could really change the direction of your company, you do need to sit down with them and see how flexible you can be. And we've changed our product for bigger partners. We've done different types of marketing in conjunction with them. We've done sales, the sales element for partners. So like if a partnership is big enough, it's going to bring in enough revenue. If it's going to add to your brand value significantly, definitely look at doing some more bespoke, customized stuff. But for the 80% of partnerships that need to kind of follow the set rules of the partnership models that you build beforehand. And when you're building those models, you probably have to be flexible in building them, but you need to establish them then. For example, we have reseller, affiliate, instructor-led training partnerships and university partnership models. We've 4 partnership models, and then we've a bespoke one as well for the bigger fish. But in general, we don't really, move outside the typical partner model unless it's somebody that's going to be a game changer for our organization, because you need to be able to keep all the rest of the departments in your organization aligned with what you're doing. So marketing, sales, product, and operations, just to make sure you can resource everything correctly. Depending on the partnership, you really have to be cognizant of how long it could potentially take to recruit a partner. For say smaller organizations where you kind of might hold a bit more, I guess, of the leverage, you could get a partnership together. Probably 6 to 8 weeks would be the shortest amount of time for partner recruitment. But I've sales cycles with partners that's been up to 2 years. That's just what you have to be ready for. The bigger the partner, especially if you're dealing with public universities or very large organizations, be ready to be in for the long haul. It could take anything up to 2 years to get that deal together. So. I think probably the most important element of a partnership is it has to be mutually beneficial. It's kind of in the word itself. It is a partnership. Like I've signed partnerships whereby they looked really good. Where perhaps we were getting a lot off the revenue, but in the end, if both parties are not getting what they need from the partnership, it will ultimately, break down. And sometimes when that happens, the best thing to do is just go your separate ways, shake hands and say, this hasn't worked out. So at the start, it's important that you're aligned on your goals. Also the expectations, the actual the key performance indicators, what's the expectation in terms of revenue, student numbers, how much resources are each party going to dedicate, whether you're going to have a dedicated account manager working on the project. Also, I guess from their side, what is their dedication and their buy-in, and when it comes to onboarding and activation, what's the expectation in terms of timelines? Because I guess signing the contract's only very much the first part of the partnership. The next part is getting onboarded, which can be a long and arduous process. You do need the correct tools in place for onboarding, good resources, good ways to share those resources. You do need processes in place, which are really important. You need your sales process nailed down. You need your onboarding process nailed down, your activation process to get them up and running, and then an account management process to grow the account. And it's a fine balance. You can't always dedicate these things to all partners because you have to, I suppose, measure, and see which is the most profitable ones for your organization and which ones will be able to kind of manage with less resources. So it's a balancing act. But the key thing is good communication around that and to be honest around that, and not to overpromise around that. So yeah, good communication is probably the most important thing. And to have those goals aligned between parties about what the expectation is from each side. And I guess, that all comes at the sales stage. It's not something that happens afterwards. So sometimes, there's a lot of consultation before going into partnership, and that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be walking in to a partnership and then suddenly on the first onboarding call, it sounds like a completely different partnership than what was proposed on the table. With large organizations as well, what you'll find is you'll probably have the sales or the procurement side handled by somebody different than who's doing the onboarding. So, it's kind of aligning all these teams, good project management around aligning them. But just having really good buy-in at all levels across the organization as well. Quite often you could work for months on a partnership and then the person who's driving it from the organization side leaves and somebody else takes over and it's not their priority anymore. Partnership goes ahead, but it doesn't have a champion within the business and ultimately fails. There's things that happen that's outside your control as well. But the main point, I think, is good communication and aligned KPIs and aligned goals between organizations. I think it's probably, it's going back to the point on communication. It's at the core of every partnership. You and your team, if you're selling into a region, you need to become an expert on that region. But even, it doesn't matter how much desk research you do, how many government reports, how much research you do, the person on the ground in the local organization is always going to know more than you about regulations, traditions, things like that. So I guess we live in a world too that's pretty tumultuous at the moment. We got big macro factors. There's wars. There's natural disasters. There's all these things happening as well. So you have to be really just cognizant about these things happening. Be pretty sensitive to partners that are affected by them. And sometimes you just have to postpone a partnership for 6 months over something that's happening on the ground level. Um, I think what you need to do when it comes to partnerships is while you can do be an authority on a global I suppose global aspect, you don't really know what's going on locally on the ground in a region. The local partner knows that. So communication is key with them, about what's affecting their business. Why are student numbers not as good as they should be? Why do they need to postpone a class, etc.? And you need to be understanding and you need to be pretty flexible. But then there comes a point then, say, if things are ongoing where the partnership, you might have to put it on ice for a while or something like that. If something is just affecting too much and you can't keep dedicating your resources to it. But I think that you need to listen as much as possible to your partners. Have regular calls with them. Um, and listen to what's their barriers and try to help them overcome them if you can. And that's the most important thing. I think communication, flexibility, um, And yeah, just to really kind of listen to your partners as much as possible, and try to work with them through solving issues. Or sometimes it's, it's true how, things are going really well, and how can we grow an account? Or, is there local government funding we can access together? Is there a project we can work with together with a big local corporation, or do business to business deals together? So there's negative and there's positives you need to work on together. And if you listen, you probably will find a lot more opportunities for the positive, and then ways to actually overcome the negatives. The important thing to do is really do your research at the start, and know what your ideal partners look like. I would say too, if you are a startup, you might be willing to take on any partner, or you might look at, you know, a company that's not a fit for partnership at all. And even like, some of the bigger companies that um, might look like a good partner, they could be a huge draw on your resources, and they might be using you just to, I don't know, fill a gap in their portfolio, and they mightn't have any intention to really, go into a partnership that is going to be beneficial to you. So I would say, have your due diligence in place. Always research a company. If there is any kind of I guess, inclination that the company mightn't be legitimate, definitely don't go down that route, because it will harm your brand. It could potentially rip off your intellectual property. They could be very harmful to your company if you recruit the wrong partner. Similarly, with larger organizations, you need to be a little bit careful. What are their goals for working with you as an organization? Um, I think you need to be very careful about the actual documentation involved as well. So through our processes, we have things like expression of interest forms. We'll do credit checks on companies if we're not totally 100% assured that that they have good finances. We'll do things like well, it starts with desk research, due diligence. Their website, is a good indication of how good a company is. Um, I suppose when you're working with universities and colleges, you don't necessarily have these things to worry about because they're public or they're well-established organizations. But definitely in the private sector and that sector, you need to be careful with who you work with. Have a good license agreement in place. Obviously, every partner can't have a separate document, so you need good draft license agreements. We have separate ones for each partner model, and it covers all different kinds of things, from data processing to indemnity to insurance to local tax regulations, everything like that. So we have good draft documents that works, in locations. And sometimes, we need to make changes to these, especially when we're working with universities or big organizations. But for the main part, if we're working with smaller companies, we say, well, that's our documentation. You need to sign it. There are rules and you play by them. Whereas if you're going up the ladder, then you kind of probably have to, take feedback and change the documents a little bit. But usually, if there's big changes to be made, we get legal advice on it. So to summarize on that, have all your correct documentation in place. Even before a contract is signed, have an expression of interest that gives a good sort of overview from the partner about what they want to achieve from the partnership and what resources they are going to dedicate to the partnership as well. While it's not a legal document, it'll indicate their sort of core goals, needs, and priorities. Um, you know, so I guess it's like, you know, just to do your due diligence, and don't waste a lot of time on a partnership that's not a fit. Um, and then sometimes you will sign partnerships for different reasons. For example, if a big organization approaches you, they might want to do a partnership that might lead to a lot of revenue, but will really get your brand out there, and maybe will be attractive for investors when they see that you're working with, I don't know, the largest education provider for a certain thing, and you're working with them. So it really kind of is good for your sort of brand value, and you might make any money out of it. So there is other aspects to partnership. It's not all about revenue. So I think you have to consider all the different sides of the equation before you know, moving forward and signing things up. For a startup, you will hit a ceiling when it comes to your B2C market, unless you're in an industry where there is no ceiling. And I hope you are, because yeah, that's the real good profit from that side of things. But I guess, you know, it does also depend on your industry and sector and whether partnerships is a fit. You know, and I suppose look at what other organizations are doing in the sector, do loads of competitive analysis and things like that. Um, I think, you know, in terms of scalability, it's definitely one of the main arms to our business, to kind of that's growing exponentially year on year. And you know, the kind of the sky's the limit on it. Like, you know, there's thousands of universities and colleges globally. You know, there is a huge skills gap in UX design and people wanting to learn new UX design. So it's really about, you know, finding those right partners to get you to those places in the market that you can't access. You know, probably if you have your core local market, you probably, unless it's, you know, a university or somebody that's going to bring you a lot of prestige, probably no point in having other competing. Because ultimately, if you have partners in your main markets, you know, they're almost our competitors with your B2C channel. So you have to be really cognizant of channel conflict, you know, and reducing the revenues coming from your business to consumer channel because you've got a partner in there as well, cannibalizing your B2C. So you have to be careful of that. If you sign a partner in your local in your local catchment area, make sure that they're bringing something significantly different to the table. You know, something that's you're offering plus more. They're accessing government funding, or they're teaching your program in the classroom, or they're doing something different to what you're doing. Just don't sign up a partner that's going to do the exact same thing in the same market, because it doesn't make sense. Um, Ultimately, I see we see it as the main growth area in the business, because I think, you know, our cost per acquisition for students coming through our B2C channels is so high, um, you know, that the partner network really helps us just to get out there and get to new areas, and scale the business that way. Um, but yeah, yeah, the future's bright in terms of partnerships. But you know, the thing is, it is a really long-term play as well. Um, and I think for any startup that's thinking about building a partner network, they really have to consider the long-term plan. It's you know, I'm already looking at plans for 2025. You know, when most of the team are talking about 2024. We're talking about, you know, what's the funding coming down the line for 2025 in different markets, things like that. So you know, you have to be tactical. You have to know what's going on in the here and now, but you need a very kind of long-term plan ahead when you know, some business deals that don't close for 2 years. So you can't forecast these things. So it's a long-term play, I would say. But if you do it right, the scalability is huge, and it's a fantastic way to grow your organization, providing your organization is a good fit for partnership.